Okay, so this will be the last video in our Blackboard Essential workshops. And this is Blackboard Essentials 4, going over grade censor. So as you can see on my screen, you should be in your course that you've been, using to participate alongside the videos. You should be ideally participating and following along with my videos so that you could better understand the process of the material that I've been showing you. But once you're in your course, what you want to do is scroll to the very bottom of your menu panel, and under the course management section, you're going to find grade censor. Sorry. When you click on grade censor, it's going to expand here, and you could access it through clicking on full grade censor or just clicking on this little arrow right here, and then this takes you to your full grade center. You should be able to see this scrolling bar on the side, and if you had more students, you should have a scrolling bar on the side over here as well. If for some reason you are missing this scroll bar, I am going to recommend that you go to our Codwell portal page, and we have a section labeled as Blackboard FAQ. And there, you'll be able to find there's a section that specifically references if this scroll bar is missing, and it has steps so that you can go along with those steps and be able to enable the scrolling bar. I have steps for both Mac users and steps for Windows 7 users or Windows 10 users. Otherwise, if for some reason you are not using any of those three options, you can Google as to why the scroll bar is not appearing, and you'll be able to find a guide that will walk you step by step to how to fix that. Okay, so let's get into a few things here before we go into these tabs up here. I want to go over the icon legend with you real quick. So these are the different kind of icons that you'll be able to see here in your Blackboard grade censor. As you can see here, I have a couple of overwrites. I have a couple of columns that are not visible to users, and that means to your students. And if you see any of these, if you ever wonder what they might mean, click on the icon legend and it's going to explain to you what that means. Okay, and if you ever want to organize your columns here or your rows, you're going to see that for me at least, I only have this first and last name that are grayed out, but you might have one that says username, student ID, last date access, and availability. And those might be grayed out for you, and that's a lot of information. And as you can see here, if you have a total of 6 columns grayed out, that only gives you enough space to see 3 of your other columns, and that could be kind of frustrating at times. If you want to remove them, I'm going to show you how to do that right now. And you could go to Manage, and under Manage, you're going to go to Column Organization. Here, this is the top section that we're going to focus on first, and here's where you're going to see those extra columns. You can see here I have mines listed, and they're kind of like phased out, and they say hidden because I've decided to hide those columns. If I select on any of these columns, I could go here to the Show Hide tab, and I could show them. And at least for this top section, because this is just user information, if I put it over here, that means that this row is gonna get, what's the word? It's gonna get frozen in place. Meaning I could scroll left and right all I want, and I'm always gonna be able to see the first name, last name, and username. If I move it down here, that means that once I move to the side, that column stays in place and it won't be visible anymore. But I don't want to show those columns. I'm going to hide them once again, and they will say hidden here. And then these are the columns that I have in my grade center. If I do want to move things around, as you can see here, I could just click here and drag it. As you know, I could drag them up and down. If I've created a column manually, I'll be able to delete it here. If I click this check mark and click delete, I can delete it. if I try to delete a column like the midterm test that we created last time, through this page, I will not be able to delete it because we've created that particular item in a content area. So I will need to go into my content area, click on the test, and I would need to go to the edit page and click delete. And then if for some reason you want to change the categories of what your columns fall into, you could click here, here on the change categories to, and then select which categories. Just make sure you've marked off which columns those are that you want to change the categories for. And I'll explain to you why this category is an important feature. You can see here we have due dates, and these are the dates that I've created the column. But if you created columns, those are the dates that you've created columns. And here it tells you the possible points for each column. So I've kept everything at 100. But you can see, like, if you have an assignment that was worth 20 points or a discussion board that was worth 5 points, you'll be able to see the numbers change here. Once you're done with everything, click submit to save all your changes. And what I'm going to do is we're going to create a new column. And as you can see here, I have a presentation column that I've created previously, but now I want to create a new one, and it's going to be, I did presentation. We're going to keep with that theme of presentation. So now it's going to be oral presentation, because I was going to, in the other one, I was just grading their overall, let's say, PowerPoint presentation, but now I'm going to actually grade their presentation of their presentation, if that makes sense. Okay, so at the bottom you're going to see that you have the grade center name. You do not need to fill that out. It would just give your column a different name. If you decide to word it that differently, it's not necessary. Description is also not necessary because only you'll be able to see the description. And I feel like the name should be a description enough for the column itself. So here then we have the primary display. It's going to automatically be score, but you can choose one of these other options. More widely used is the score, the percentage. If you want a secondary display to appear, perhaps a letter like A, B, or C, you can have that on the side as well. And here under category, I'm going to put that in my presentation category. And the categories, you want to think of this as, I know in your syllabus, you tell your students how much each kind of part of your class weighs. So if you have a presentation category that's worth 20% of your students' overall grade, you want to make sure you create that category. If if this was an assignment, then you would click under the assignment category, and I'll show you how to create a category if you do not find yours here. So because I already have a presentation category, I'm going to click on presentation. I'm going to give it possible points of 100. And my reasonings as to why I believe like it would be easier just to keep everything at 100. You can select a due date if you want, but it's not necessary. And then here I would keep this checked off to yes, that you do want to include it with your grade center calculations. If you want your students to see their grades, select yes. And I would just keep this to no. Otherwise, it's going to create a new column which is going to do an average and mean of everything, and that's not necessary. So we're going to click submit because we're done creating our column now. And when we scroll all the way to the end, you see this new column has appeared here. If for some reason I did not have a presentation category, the way you would create it is you would go to manage and then go to categories right here, and you would click on create a category. So let's say if I had a midterm, and I said that the midterm / final, the midterm and finals are worth cumulative, let's say 35%. Oh, sorry. If that's worth 35% of the grade, then I will show you how that would look. But I've made my midterm and final here, and if I have a column in that category, then the name will appear here. And I'm gonna add something to this column. So when we click OK, it's gonna take us back to our grade center, and I have this midterm 2 test, and I want to change its category, right? And this was a test that we created in our last video. So when we go to edit column information, you see I can't change the name because this was a column that was created through a test, but I could definitely change its category. And I'm going to put that as a midterm and final category and just save it. And I believe I have another column here that's labeled midterm, and I'm going to go to edit column information and put that in my midterm category as well. And this midterm, as you can see, I can edit this, and this was an assignment that I have created in my course. Okay, so once I've made all the changes that I need, one other thing that I do want to show you is I want you to pay attention to this grade information bar that's right up here. And when I hover over the name of the column, it's gonna, first of all, you're gonna see the little pop-up on the side that says midterm paper. If you have a very long name for your column, you're gonna be able to see it there. But also, I want you to look back up at the grade section I had just pointed at, and you're gonna see that it says possible points is 100. It's gonna say what category that falls into. So I put that midterm paper to go into my midterm slash final category. The name of the column is a midterm paper, and then it tells me if my students have submitted anything. And as you can see in my grade center here, I've written these grades, so I manually entered those grades is what that means. And if there's any attempts that need to be graded, I'll be able to see if anyone's submitted something and if I need to grade it or not. So that's just very useful information. If for some reason you're just entering manual grades and you do not grade out of 100 points, and let's say you forget how many points you allotted that column, just hovering over the title and looking at what the possible points is very helpful. So I'm just gonna put random grades, and when you are putting your grades in, just make sure to click enter, and it's gonna tab you to the next student until you're all done with that. So when you're done entering all your grades, I want to focus now on what we call the weighted total column. So you should have one created in your grade center. So I want you to go to that column, click on the circle that brings up a drop down menu, and go to edit column information. Okay, and then once you're there, you do not need to change its name. You do not need a description. I'm going to keep the primary display to percentage. And what we want to focus on is this next part, which is in a gray box here. And this is what's going to be very important for you. This top section just lists all the columns that are created in my grade center. But we want to make sure that we select by category, because it becomes very tedious. Sorry. It will become very tedious if I just move over each individual assignment and allotted a certain percentage. So, because this is one essay in a group of assignments, and let's say I have 5 assignments, you would have to figure out how much each assignment is worth, and that could be a little confusing. So if you just want to make sure all your overall assignments, which I have my Unit 1 essay and my paper and my Unit 1 book report, those are all the assignments that I have in my grade center, fall into that category. I would just click on this button right here, and that pushes that category over. And let's say I said assignments are worth 15% of your overall grade. And I said that midterm and final are over here, are worth 35% of your overall grade. Attendance, I'm going to say, is worth 10%. Tests is going to be again 10%. And let's say I have discussions worth 30%. And I believe, yeah, that should bring me to 100. You want to make sure that your total weighted right here is worth 100. And as you put in numbers, that number is going to change to reflect what it is. If you have all your scoring is out of 100, you can keep that to equally weighted columns. If for some reason let me go to the one discussion is worth 5 points, another one's worth 10 points, another one's worth 3 points, and so on, then you want to weigh everything proportionally so that it reflects the grading accurately. Because an assignment that's worth 10 points should weigh more than an assignment that was worth 3 points. And then that's why the proportionality button here is for. If you want to drop one of the grades, you can put in, like, if someone got a 65 or lower, then that grade will be dropped for that student. These drop options right here, you do not need to use them if you do not want to. Do you want to calculate as a running total? I want to click yes. If I click no, this section right here tells me why. Selecting no includes all items in the column using a value of 0 for any item if there is no grade. That means if one of your students did not submit an assignment, they automatically get a 0 for that. If you want to do that, then you can click on no, and then everything that's empty will be calculated as a 0 in their grades. If you are still giving them the chance to submit that work, then I would just click it to yes. Up to you whether you want to use yes or no. I'm going to just click on yes because yes is already pre-selected for me anyways. And these options, like we saw when we created a column, are the same, and I would just leave it as is. If I do not want my students to see their overall weighted total, I would just click no, and that would hide it from their view. So I'm going to click submit, and you see the weighted total for my students is right here on the side. Okay, and then the next thing I want to show you will be, as you can see here in the total column, I have both a percentage and a letter appearing. And if for some reason this number and letter do not correspond with one another, you can definitely change that. We go to manage, we go to grading schemas. You're gonna have one already pre-made for you. You want to edit that, and here we have your grading schema. Yours numbers might be a little bit different than mine. I've edited my grading schema, and this is how it's gonna look like. And I'll show you what I mean by the grading schema. Sometimes on a syllabus or by department, you'll have like a value set point for what each letter is gonna equal to. And I have over here in this tab, this is someone's syllabus, and they have a grading schema here, and it's just letting their students know that to get an A they need 100, 294, and so on. So basically I just translated this information to my Blackboard here, so that when I do enter a grade, it's going to show me the appropriate letter depending on the number that they have. And I can add more rows by clicking on this arrow, or I could delete a row here by clicking on the word delete. I can edit these letters here by changing it here if I want. And if I change any of these numbers on the side over here will change to reflect the changes that I've made. And sometimes by department, I know they'll have different grading schemas. If your department is using the generic university one, I would ask my department chair to share that with me so that I could change it on Blackboard, because Blackboard just has a generic one made for you, and it might not reflect the letters appropriately to the grades that you're giving them. So once you're done making your changes there, just click submit to save your grading schema, and then just click OK to go back to your grade center. And you have here this create calculated columns, and your total column and your weighted column are calculated columns, and you don't necessarily need to create them because they should be created for you. You can definitely edit them by going to the edit column information if you want. And then let's see, if you ever want to create a report for your students, they want to know their grades, report name. I'm gonna create one, report, just for the sake of it, report one. I'm gonna name this. And if you want to do it for a specific user, you would click on user. I'm gonna click it on that one user that I have here. Their first name, last name will appear. I'm gonna make sure their student name appears. Make sure all the columns appear. And I want this information to appear. I'm gonna preview that, and it's gonna just print me a report of the student's grade with, you know, the columns and all the grades that they've submitted. If your student is ever like wondering why they have a certain grade, for some reason, they're confused with their grading, you can definitely create this report and have them printed, discuss, what their grades are, and then just have a signature here for them to sign, so that you have a record of going over their grades with them. So that's just a fun little thing that Blackboard can create for you automatically. You would click submit to generate, I believe it's a PDF to download. So that goes over everything that we could do here in Grade Center online. If for some reason you're going on vacation, we have a couple of days off, and you want to work on your Grade Center, but you're not going to be near internet service, you're gonna, you want to disconnect, you want to work on this on an Excel format, you can definitely do that by clicking here on the work offline, and you can download. And I'm going to download this so I could show you. And I'm going to just keep it as full grade center, and I'm going to keep all of this, include hidden information, and I'm going to just keep everything as is. And I'm going to click submit, and then just download. And once that downloads, it's going to open as an Excel file. Okay, and then just open it, and it's going to open the Excel file for you. Do not edit any of the names here on the top. Do not edit any of, this other information here. Do not change any of the wording or anything. Do not change your weighted or total columns. You are just going to input grades that are still missing. So I'm just going to finish entering grades here for my students. Okay, and then once you're done, once you're done making all those changes to the grading, so that's only the number parts here, you're going to click save. Okay, let's say you finish working online, you come back next week, you want your changes to reflect on your Blackboard, you're going to go to upload. So just again, I want to show you real quick. I went back to the work offline button here. I went to upload. I'm going to browse my computer. And you see the file name is here. I would also recommend do not change the name of the file. Keep it as is. Okay, and I'm just gonna make sure this is clicked off as tab and submit. And as you can see here, everything matched. As long as you have these green checks, that means everything was able to transfer correctly. And then just click submit. And then you can see here, all my columns now have grades, and my weighted total should have changed because I've entered more grades. And oh, one quick thing before I do conclude this video is, as you can see here, I have assignments and tests. You might already have these pre-selected, but if you want to ever add just quickly another tab here, and I'm going to show you what these tabs look like. So if I just click on assignments, it's going to show me my grade center and only have my assignment columns shown. As well, when I click on test, only my tests. If I go to manage and I go to smart views, I can select the ones that have a star, means that they are going to appear here at the bottom. So if I want discussion board, I already have the discussion board here, and this is going to add it to this section down here, and I have now my discussion board. So when I click on discussion board, all of my discussion board are going to appear here, so I could grade them that way if you want to separate them instead of looking at the very long grade center. You can separate it by section. So discussion board, I have assignments and tests. I have that like that. So just to customize things. So that covers everything that you could do with Grade Center. If you do have any questions, you can always reach out to us and we'll be able to help guide you with how to maneuver Grade Center. Thank you for watching the series of the Blackboard Essential workshops. And like I said before, always reach out if you have any questions.